The twin suns of Iridia hung high in the pale sky, their relentless glare turning the landscape into a shimmering mirage. Waves of heat danced across the dunes, distorting reality in golden ripples. Rafe Tarek adjusted the wide-brimmed sunshade on his scanning goggles and trudged up the slope of a particularly steep dune, each step sending clouds of fine, ochre sand drifting into the air behind him. He'd been in the field for 2 weeks, far longer than he'd planned, but the planet's notorious dust storms had grounded all aerial drones. Now, with skies finally clearing, Rafe was determined to locate evidence of the so-called Ghost Oasis, a legendary microclimate rumored to harbor remnants of ancient vegetation. His excitement at the prospect of discovering life was tempered by the grinding exhaustion in his muscles and the ever-present taste of grit in his mouth dotted the crest. He paused to catch his breath, letting the scanner attached to his belt sweep the horizon. The device emitted a series of soft beeps, nothing promising. He sighed, wiped sweat from his brow, and prepared to descend, when something on the periphery of his vision arrested him. A dark, angular shape, half swallowed by sand. Heart-quickening. Rafe waved away a trailing ribbon of his scarf. He angled his goggles for a closer look. It wasn't a rock, not a driftwood remnant of some long-forgotten experiment. The form was 2 precise straight edges, a curved surface like a shell, metallic sheen catching the sunlight in brief, glittering flashes. Instinct overriding caution, he dropped down the dune's steep side, sand spilling underfoot. The closer he got, the more impossible it seemed. Here, in the middle of nowhere, lay the remains of something perfectly engineered, yet alien. The hull was scarred and dented, as if battered by violent force, but even through the dust and scorch marks, Rafe could make out intricate circuitry like etchings etched into the metal. His scanner crackled and fizzled, trying and failing to classify the substance. He crouched, running a gloved hand over the cool metal. Instead of giving way, the hull yielded a faint vibration, as if alive. Rafe's breath caught in his throat. "What are you?" he whispered, voice trembling. For a long, breathless moment, the wreckage remained silent. The desert wind whistled through a jagged seam in the plating, carrying grains of sand like tiny projectiles. Rafe pressed his ear closer to the seam, heart hammering against his ribs. Then, just as he began to doubt his senses, a low, resonant hum emerged, a single, pure note that vibrated through the air and reverberated in his bones. He leapt back, stumbling on the loose sand. The hum swelled into a chord of 3 notes, each one echoing the syllables of his whispered question in its own alien key. The cryptic symbols adorning the ship's hull glowed with indigo light, tracing patterns that pulsed in time with the They formed loops and arcs that seemed to writhe and shift, as though responding to an unspoken language. Stars of sweat beaded on Rafe's forehead. He fumbled for his datapad, hand shaking so violently he almost dropped it. His fingers danced across the holographic keyboard as he activated the translation module, a last-minute addition to his gear. It was designed to catch linguistic patterns and flag them for later analysis, but he'd hoped not to need it this soon. After all, what translator could parse a truly alien dialect? The hum tapered off, leaving the desert eerily silent. The symbol's glow faded to a soft pulse, like a heartbeat. Rafe lifted his head, scanning every angle of the ship's surface. Small vents hissed as they released puffs of air, and thin fractures in the plating oozed a viscous, iridescent fluid that shimmered in the harsh light. He cleared his throat, trying to steady his voice. "My name is Rafe Tarek," he said, louder than necessary. He paused, the words catching in his throat. "I'm an explorer. I survey microclimates. I mean no harm." The indecipherable script flared to life again, brighter and more insistent. The ship's hum resumed a single note, held long and steady. Then it shifted, breaking into a sequence of musical pulses that Rafe's translator module eagerly recorded. Transliteration appeared on his datapad. ... Kalairi. And dash vo. He stared at the screen. The syllables had no match in any known database, but they repeated, each time accompanied by a subtle shift in the light patterns, as if the ship were testing him, gauging his comprehension. A sudden wind gust kicked up a swirl of sand, stinging Rafe's exposed skin. He raised his arm, shielding his face, and stumbled backward. When the sand settled, the ship's hatch, previously invisible, stood open before him. A ramp of smooth obsidian unfurled from the hatch, sliding down into the sand with a soft. Rafe's eyebrows shot up. Every instinct screamed danger, yet curiosity and something deeper, unnameable, pulled him forward. He tapped a few commands into his datapad, engaging his external comms. Base, do you read? I found something? Extraordinary. Static crackled, but no response came. Of course, the old repeater tower was miles behind him, disabled. By storms, he exhaled, pocketed the comms, and took a cautious step toward the ramp. The hum stilled. The symbols around the hatch dimmed to a reassuring glow. Rafe inhaled, feeling the weight of centuries on his shoulders. Behind him, the desert's whisper faded into silence as he placed his boot on the ramp's cool surface. He glanced back at the unbroken sea of dunes, his world, and then up at the yawning entrance, leading into the unknown dot with one last breath of scorching air. He climbed aboard dot in the murmur of shifting sand and the hush of ancient metal. Rafe Tarek took his first step toward a destiny no one on Iridia could have imagined. Dawn broke with a pale violet haze over the dunes, the twin suns rising lazily as if reluctant to witness what might unfold. Rafe Tarek awoke in the safety of the ship's alcove, his back propped against the obsidian hull. The desert's chill still clung to the hidden recesses of the vessel, and the hum of its systems was a constant low vibration beneath his skin. He sat up, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, and took in the alien architecture around him, walls of interlocking plates that seemed to breathe as they adjusted to the morning temperature, conduits that glowed faintly with an inner energy, and a narrow corridor that ended in a sealed door stamped with the same cryptic symbols he'd seen outside. He retrieved his datapad and attached it to a recessed port on the wall. The translation module powered up with a soft chime, screens flickering to life in a cascade of unfamiliar characters. Rafe exhaled, steeling himself. There was no turning back now. He cleared his throat. "Good morning," he said in Galactic Standard, his voice echoing down the corridor. "I'm Rafe Tarek. I came back." Immediately, the symbols along the walls shimmered, rearranging themselves into patterns that formed brief bursts of luminescence. The module began to hum, and text scrolled across its display. "Good morning, Rafe Tarek. The Reclaimer returns." Rafe frowned at the screen. He tapped a command to log the message and asked the most basic question he could think of. "Where's the pilot?" The reply came in a rush of glyphs that coalesced into rough transliteration. Pilot lost. Ship dormant. Archive compromised. Archive compromised? He repeated aloud. He peered more closely at the hull, noticing tiny spiderweb fractures branching out from impact points, as if the ship's memory banks had taken the brunt of whatever brought it down. He switched on his portable torch and traced the lines of damaged circuit lattice veins that might have once carried data or life support fluids. As he worked, he felt the ship's hum shift beneath his feet, a quickening pulse, like anticipation. The corridor ahead slid open of its own accord, revealing a circular room dominated by a raised dais. On the dais floated a three-dimensional projection sphere, its surface rippling with static light. Rafe approached, heart pounding. A holographic figure resolved within the sphere, a humanoid form, slender and elongated, bathed in pale lavender light. Its features were angular high cheekbones, tapered chin, and its eyes, though faceless, projected intelligence. It raised one hand in a gesture that Rafe recognized as greeting. What are you?" Rafe said, voice hoarse. The figure tilted its head. Words formed in the air, flickering before solidifying into text on Rafe's datapad. "I am Archivist Tailquin. I served as pilot and guardian of the Eon Archive." "You are Reclaimer." Rafe's mind reeled. Eon Archive, an ancient repository said to contain knowledge of 1,000 worlds lost to time. You were the pilot?" he asked. "What happened to you?" The archivist's projection shimmered. Text translated. The archive was attacked during the final sundering. Hostiles breached containment. We diverted power to save memory. Course, I remained to oversee shutdown. I perished, but a copy of my consciousness resides here. He swallowed hard. You sacrificed yourself for the archive. Integrity of data was paramount. Many perished so others might remember. Silence filled the chamber as the weight of that sacrifice settled on him. Rafe closed his eyes, picturing countless world cities of glass, oceans of bioluminescent plankton, forests whose leaves whispered in electric currents, all wiped away in cosmic conflict, yet preserved here. He opened his eyes and placed a hand on the dais. If I am the Reclaimer, why me? I'm just an explorer, hardly a soldier or a guardian. The archivist's form pulsed gently, as if considering. After a moment, the words appeared. The resonance of hope was in your voice. We require a vessel to continue what was begun. The archive calls for one who values discovery, who will protect and share knowledge rather than hoard power. Rafe's chest tightened. What knowledge remains? What must I recover? Fragmented cores are scattered across 3 sectors: the Gossamer Nebula, the Rift of Shadows, and the Zenith Arc. Only by uniting these fragments can the archive be restored. He nodded slowly, absorbing every syllable. And how do I find them? The hologram shifted, and a star map materialized around them. Tiny lights marking distant systems. Lines arced between constellations, tracing 3 distinct paths. This interface will guide you. Speak a destination name. Rafe studied the map. Each path led farther into uncharted space than any human had ever ventured. Yet the glimmering stars beckoned. His gaze drifted back to the archivist's image. "I'll need supplies," he said. Food, water, fuel. Images flared on. Wall panels, storage bays opening, crates of rations rolling out, fuel cells charging. The ship anticipated his needs, its systems aligning with his intent even before he fully articulated it. He dug into his pack, pulling out a handful of protein, bars and water capsules. Holding them up, he asked, "Can these integrate with your systems? I don't want to scavenge supplies meant for something else. Human sustenance incompatible. Recommending synthesis from local materials. Continue scanning for organic compounds." Rafe pocketed the bars. Understood. He turned back to the hologram. "Archivist Tailquin, I accept the mission. I'll retrieve the fragments and restore the archive." The projection brightened, then contracted into a pulse of light that raced along the conduits overhead. The hum swelled into a triumphant chord, and for a moment, Rafe thought he could hear distant applause. Outside, the morning sun climbed higher. Rafe stepped onto the deck and gazed out at the dunes, now seeming less barren than before. Somewhere beyond those sands lay the path to the Gossamer Nebula. He lifted his gaze to the sky, breath catching at the thought of worlds waiting to be reclaimed. "Let's begin," he whispered Dot, and with that single command, the ship responded, lights flickering to life, engines humming deeper, and Rafe. Tarek realized that his desert wanderings were now part of something far greater, an echo of the past destined to shape the future. Rafe stood on the graded platform at the ship's midsection, toes brushing the fine layer of desert sand that had drifted in through the open hatch. The heat of Iridia pressed against him, but inside the vessel, a cocoon of cool metal and soft luminescence, it felt like stepping into a different world. All around him, the conduits throbbing with indigo light traced intricate circuits along the walls, as though the ship's lifeblood pulsed through its veins. He turned back toward the cockpit hatch, heart hammering. The archivist's projection had vanished into the ship's memory core, leaving him alone with the hum of awakening engines. Rafe had one last look at the corridor. He'd emerged from a corridor that had seemed so alien, so forbidding only hours ago, and reminded himself that there was no going back. His hand hovered over the polished control panel next to the hatch. The symbols glowed expectantly, awaiting his touch. He inhaled, pressed his palm flat, and felt a gentle warmth spread through the metal recognition. With a mechanical sigh, the hatch slid upward, gears turning in perfect synchrony. Rafe stepped. Inside, the cockpit was shaped like a teardrop, dominated by a central command chair nestled among holographic consoles. Before him, a semicircle of translucent screens flickered to life, displaying star charts, system diagnostics, and a countdown timer beside a pulsing icon labeled Launch Readiness. Above the consoles, a domed viewport offered a panoramic view of the desert sky. Twin suns had climbed higher, their light now filtered through the ship's adaptive shielding into a soothing twilight glow. Rafe settled into the command chair, leather straps unfolding automatically and securing him comfortably. The smooth armrests flexed, conforming to his grip, and a soft chime echoed as the seat linked him to the ship's neural interface. A rush of data flooded his senses, the low drone of reactors cooling, the current charge levels of the anti-gravity matrix, the trajectory vectors needed to breach Iridia's atmosphere. His mind whirred with possibilities and responsibilities. A gentle voice, warm and resonant, spoke directly into his consciousness. Reclaimer, all systems nominal, awaiting your command. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the calm assurance of the ship's eye wash over him. Then he opened them, steeling his resolve. Activate launch sequence, he said. The cockpit lights dimmed, and indicators along the consoles glowed green in rapid sequence. He watched as the countdown timer began. 60, 59, 58. Outside, the hatch panels beneath the ship shifted, revealing the gravitic thrusters nestled in silent wells. Sand rippled away from the hull as energy fields engaged, lifting the vessel. An inch above the dunes. Engines online, the voice confirmed. Gravity well at 30%. Atmospheric breach vector locked. Confirmed destination. Rafe leaned forward, tapping the nav display. 3 sector paths shone with pale blue lines. The Gossamer Nebula, the Rift of Shadows, and the Zenith Arc. He traced his finger along the first path. Gossamer Nebula, he replied firmly. Plot course. The star map zoomed in, and translucent waypoint marker blinked into existence. The countdown reached 5 seconds. A final system check scrolled across every panel. Shield stable. Power reserves 80%. Life support functional. Confirmed, he said. Initiating launch. The AI intoned. A roar unlike anything Rafe had ever heard vibrated through the hull. The platform beneath him disappeared as the ship surged upward anti-gravity fields, pushing aside tons of sand. The viewport filled with shifting grains of dust before clearing into the vast desert panorama. Twin suns flared in his vision, then fell away as the vessel pitched back, engines thrusting into the cobalt sky. Rafe gripped the armrests, adrenaline flooding his veins. The horizon curved, dunes shrinking into a rippling mosaic of gold. The world fell away. He felt the ship's power as a living thing, energetic, purposeful, aligning with his own heartbeat. Entering upper atmosphere, the AI reported. Structural integrity nominal. Outside, the azure sky deepened to indigo. The thin vestiges of Iridia's atmosphere dissolved around them, replaced by the cold vacuum of near space. Rafe watched stars glitter into existence against the black canvas, marveling at how close they seemed now. The Gossamer Nebula lay far ahead, a hazy ribbon of pastel clouds and starlight, but already the ship's sensors were painting its coordinates. Course is set for arrival in 72 hours, allowing for optimal approach velocity, said the AI. Rafe nodded, even though no one could see. Understood. Engage inertial dampeners. A gentle counterforce pressed him into his seat as the ship accelerated. He closed his eyes, savoring the hum of the engines and the soft glow of the consoles. All the uncertainty, the fear, the deserts, scorching isolation. It felt like a lifetime ago. In that moment, he realized that the true mission was only beginning. Beyond the Gossamer Nebula waited the first fragment of the Eon Archive, but somewhere in its swirling gas and hidden asteroids lay challenges he could not yet foresee. He opened his eyes and touched the helm control. "Prepare long-range comms," he said quietly. "I want to update base when we're clear of the atmosphere." "Affirmative," the AI replied. Long-range channel open. Rafe cleared his throat, his voice steady. "This is Rafe Tarek aboard the Eon Reclaimer, leaving Iridia's atmosphere at T-0. Destination, Gossamer Nebula, requesting acknowledgement." The comms crackled, then fell silent. No reply. He had expected as much. Iridia's network was down, and he'd left his allies weeks behind. But that only steeled his determination. He leaned back, studying the star-strewn void before him. The ship hummed its quiet song of power and purpose. Rafe closed his eyes, imagining the first fragment, a crystalline matrix housing the lore of a lost civilization. He pictured himself descending into alien caverns, retrieving the core, and returning it to the Reclaimer's belly, where the Archivist's hologram would welcome it home. With a deep breath, he opened his eyes. "Engage slipstream drive," he commanded. A subtle distortion rippled the starscape, and the vessel shuddered as it slipped through the fabric of space. Stars stretched into silver threads. Time and distance collapsed around him. And so, with a final hum of anticipation, Rafe Tarek, the desert explorer, became something new. The pilot of an ancient ship on a journey to reclaim the past, and to write a future among the stars. Through the slipstream's twisting corridor of light and shadow, the Eon Reclaimer emerged into the silent splendor of interstellar space. Stars bloomed around them like diamonds on black velvet, and the Gossamer Nebula an opaline swirl of mist and starlight stretched ahead in pastel waves. Rafe Tarek pressed his palm to the viewport, marveling at the living tapestry before him, approaching nebula perimeter in T-6 hours. The ship's voice intoned. Its tone carried a note of anticipation that matched Rafe's own. He settled into the command chair, reviewing the sensor readouts, pockets of dense gas, wisps of charged particles, and the telltale energy signature of the first archive fragment. "Somewhere within. I want a full scan on the inner sectors," he said. "Mark any anomalous readings and potential landing sites." The holographic star map expanded, overlaying colored grids on the nebula clouds. Points of interest blinked into view. An isolated asteroid belt shimmering with crystalline ice, a derelict research outpost half swallowed by a gas vent, and an uncharted planetoid cloaked in luminescent flora. Each site pulsed with the faint residual field of the archive's memory core. Rafe's breath caught when a small, shard-like icon glowed bright. "They're that one." Designation, Sector G17, the AI confirmed. Core signature at 72% intensity. Environmental factors, high radiation, low gravity. He tapped a sequence on the console. "Prep a scout drone and shoot me in the adaptive field armor." I'll make the descent myself." Moments later, Rafe stood on the ship's external platform. As the hatch opened into the nebular void, he donned his suit, its plating humming to life, sealing against the vacuum, and clipped a compact drone launcher to his belt. With a final nod to the humming engines, he stepped off the ramp and into the void. Tethered by a thin energy beam, stars swirled around him as he drifted toward Sector G17's cluster. The nebula's pale violet haze refracted through his helmet visor, casting the world in surreal hues. He found the asteroid belt, black rocks flecked with ice that glittered like fallen stars. At the largest rock's core, a crystalline lattice jutted out, humming softly with indigo light. The fragment. He released the drone. It flitted forward on silent wings, scanning the lattice, triangulating structural weaknesses and projecting a cutting beam. Rafe anchored himself to the rock's surface and guided the drone's saw, precision slicing through tangled ice until the lattice came free with a dull thud dot. As he secured it in his pack, the rock beneath him shuddered. A crack appeared, widening rapidly as the asteroid's unstable core reacted to the nebula's charged particles. Rafe's comms crackled urgently. "Hostile environmental collapse," the ship warned. "Immediate egress advised." He didn't hesitate. Gripping the tether, he propelled himself back to the Eon reclaimer as the asteroid exploded behind him in a halo of ice and debris. The ship's external tractor beam caught him and the fragment, pulling them inside just as the last shards of rock spat against the hull. Safely back in the cockpit, Rafe unstrapped and placed the crystalline lattice into the containment pedestal. The ship hummed, its symbols dancing in the light as the fragment's energy merged with the core. In the central dais, the archivist's hologram reappeared, more vivid than before. Ta Quinn's slender form smiled, eyes alight. Text scrolled across the console. First fragment secured. Archive integrity at 12%. Well done, Reclaimer. Rafe exhaled, adrenaline still thrumming through him. What's next? He asked. Next destination, the Rift of Shadows. Coordinates. Uploaded. Outside the viewport, the nebulous pastel clouds faded into the inky abyss. Ahead lay darker perils, the rift's gravity storms and elemental maelstroms, but Rafe felt only resolve. He leaned forward, placing both hands on the helm controls. Engage slipstream, he commanded. The stars ahead stretched and pulsed as the Eon Reclaimer leapt once more into the unknown. Behind him, the Gossamer Nebula glowed faintly, a testament to the hope he carried. In that quiet moment between worlds, Rafe Tarek realized that his desert discovery had led him not just to lost knowledge, but to a destiny among the stars, and that the future of countless worlds now rested on his voice, his choices, and his courage. As the slipstream dissolved into starlight, he smiled and whispered to the empty cockpit, "Let's reclaim the rest."